What is going on, my fellow Martians? Welcome to another episode of Mixed Martian Arts. My name is Austin Shaper, and this is a daily show where we cover the topics of UAP, UFC, and World War III. Today is going to be a UAP episode and a very interesting topic to discuss today. Before we dive in, do me a favor and just click subscribe and like on the video. It really helps me out. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let's dive right in. This is very, very fascinating. You guys probably know who Ross Coulthart is. If you don't, I'll bring you up to speed very briefly. He's a journalist, investigator, and he is from Australia. And he is the one, you might recognize him from the News Nation interview that dropped, I think, 2 months ago now, where he is the one who broke the story on David Grush, the new whistleblower from the government who alleges crash retrieval programs, alien bodies, and basically the American government reverse engineering craft. Ross Coulthart is the one who brought that story to us. And then because of that event happening, they then set up this UAP hearing that just happened in Congress. Well, this same Ross Coulthart spoke recently at an event in Melbourne, Australia, and he spoke about some very, very interesting things that I simply had to make an episode on because I just don't know what to make of it. He also mentioned what I'm about to discuss with you guys on his podcast as well and alleged this. He was very discreet, but what I want to say before I dive into what he actually discussed is that Ross is extremely credible. I look at him as probably the most credible investigator, reporter, journalist, whatever term you want to coin, in the UFO community. Everything he always says tends to come true, at least since I've been following his career, and he doesn't seem to make wild claims that he has no proof of. And that is something that's extremely important because there's a lot of people that you see in this field who put the cart before the horse, so to speak. They make crazy claims and they don't have anything to back up the claims, and the claims get crazier and crazier, and we never really get resolution with the majority of what's talked about. I just realized I didn't take my allergy medicine, so I may be sneezing here like a madman. Forgive me. I'll do my best to get through it either way. But anyway, so he's very credible, and he dives into this live event in Melbourne, Australia, and he talks about a couple things. One, let's just read this post from Dr. Disclosure 89 on Twitter. I thought this was very well put, a summary of the event. He says, number one, Ross says that he knows specifics around the type of NHI, non-human intelligence, and that soon he'll be revealing more info on it. And there's a good reason he hasn't said specifics to protect sources and methods. He's very much so about protecting the people that give him information. Another reason that we can trust him, in my opinion. Some people would look at that as, okay, well, that could just be his sources are not real, or his sources are just random people with no credibility or authority in the government or whatever these programs are. I look at it in a more optimistic light that he is honestly doing the due diligence to protect the people giving him valuable, important information that would not get out to the public otherwise. Number two, he says the videos taken by the Elgin pilots that Luna, Burchett, and Gates were blocked from seeing. They mentioned this in the hearing. If you guys missed it, there was a video that they really wanted to see, and the government tried to block them from seeing it. These are members of Congress, so there was an argument back and forth about the clearances and if they were able to see the videos. And Ross says that the videos were taken with the pilots' mobile phones and show objects engaging with planes. Ross has seen these videos himself. That is so fascinating, and I'm dying to see what those videos are. Are we ever going to see them? I really doubt it, but very crazy. He must have some good sources in the government to be able to get access to videos that even members of Congress were having difficulty themselves getting access to. And three, and this is the final point, and this is really what this episode is going to be about, when asked why he said, watch Donald Trump at the end of his podcast. As I mentioned, he had a podcast about a week or two ago, and he mentioned that Donald Trump is backed into a corner and to just watch out for him. That's pretty much all he said. It was very eerie, and nobody really knew what to make of it because, Trump related to the disclosure effort, to aliens. Wow, could that be something, regardless of what you think of his political career or his presidency, etc. I'm not here to debate that. I absolutely hate discussing domestic politics. I have virtually no interest in it. I think it's largely a facade and a game, and the American people have much less power than they think they do. And anyway, so watched Donald Trump at the end of his last podcast, is what he said, and he elaborated on this in the event, during the event, and he said Trump has been backed into a corner, but he didn't go into any further detail. He's been told by 3 sources that Trump was briefed about UAPs in early 2020. As I said, this comes with a lot of credibility coming from Ross Coulthart. It really does. I urge you, if you're skeptical about what I just said right there, to go check out his podcast, Need to Know, to go rewatch the News Nation interview with David Grush, and just see this dude is credentialed. I mean, he really is. In my opinion, he is one of, if not the most credible and trustworthy journalist in the field as a whole. And for him to say that watch Donald Trump and that he thinks Donald Trump is backed into a corner, what does he mean by Trump is backed into a corner? To me, that's kind of the easy part of the speculation. We can say that it's most likely due to the fact that he has been indicted yet again. I don't even know how many times this is, 4 perhaps. Somebody can correct me on that in the comments, but I think it's like 4, maybe even 5 now. He's adding them up. And backed into a corner, meaning obviously you guys saw that there was another indictment for Trump a couple of days ago, and it supposedly has to turn himself into jail in, I think by like August, I think by this Friday or Saturday. I'm not sure about the date, but he has to turn himself into jail, and they're going to book him, and I think they're going to take the mugshot is what we're hearing now. And yeah, he may be facing charges. Whether those charges are real or fake, I don't really want to dive into that today. I will say this, and I'll leave it at that obviously this is a political persecution by the party in power right now in the Biden administration. That's obvious. I'm not here to claim anything about the charges. My honest take on it, for as little as I follow that subject, is that this is obviously meant to just make him not run for office. They don't seem to be able to dissuade him with threats or coercion. So the last attempt to get him to not run is to come up with criminal charges. Whether those criminal charges are real or fake, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know much about the charges. I don't care to read them. As I said, I think this is very much so a political game. It's political theater, and they don't want Trump running for whatever reason may be. You hear every theory from the deep state to, just all over the place. There's so many theories revolving this man and his career and his life as a president and now former president. And he is backed into a corner. That is indisputable, whether we want to say the charges are real or fake, or this is a political persecution or not. In my opinion, it's, come on, this is like a banana republic. And it's very much so the case that they don't want him to run for office, and they will do probably anything, and I mean anything, to keep this man out of office. And let's just reference the JFK assassination. Not going to dive into that one, but, interesting that those files were never put out in their entirety. They were redacted. And, every president since then that has promised, even Trump himself promised to be able to release those documents in full so we could see who was the culprit of the assassination. And he himself said I think he said this to his former top aide. He said he will not release them now. He changed his mind because he read them, and he said it is so disturbing, it would break the trust of the American people, is essentially what he said. So clearly something very bad happened with that president, and I don't think it's out of the possibility that something like that could happen again. I'm not alleging who could do it or why it would happen. I'm just saying it's a dangerous life being a former president or a current president, whether you're Biden or Trump, whoever. And, clearly Trump being president for the 4 years that he was, he probably has his hands on a lot of information that would be detrimental to the powers that be should that information get released to the public. So he is backed into a corner. I don't think that's up for dispute. You guys can argue amongst yourselves about the charges and the legitimacy of them and the purpose of it, and if they're going to go through, if they're going to fall apart like the other indictments. I'm not really here to discuss that, but I am here to say this is fascinating, because when you think of who in the government, I guess let's say a president, who would be the most likely president to break disclosure to the American public? Who would be the most likely one to go against the biggest kept secret in the universe, or at least let's say in politics, the biggest secret kept from the American people in the world at whole, in my opinion, is definitely the UFO phenomenon. And at all costs, it seems, they will stop at nothing to prevent it from getting out. It looks like there's some cracks in the dam now with things like the UFO hearing and David Grush coming forward. It looks like the attempt to keep the cat in the bag on this whole thing is starting to crumble. Or perhaps we could argue that this is a managed disclosure and they're either giving up on the fact of keeping this secret. Maybe they want to start to put the tech out into the world and they need to be able to slowly disclose this to the American people. Whatever it is, it's a fascinating time to be alive right now. And it's very fascinating because when Ross says that he's backed into a corner, Trump is backed into a corner, and he's alleging to the UFO phenomenon, what on earth could he mean? Because if you guys remember, there was an interview that Donald Trump had come out a couple years ago, don't remember the date, with his son, Donald Trump Jr., and Donald Trump Jr. asked him about Roswell. His answer was very interesting. It was fascinating. I rewatched it several times just to see if I could glean anything from their eyes, if there was anything more to the story than we were getting in the interview. It was a very brief statement, but he said that what happened in Roswell was very interesting. He said he's not very much into the alien phenomenon. He's not a quote-unquote believer, but that something very interesting happened in Roswell, and unfortunately, as they always say, he can't discuss more about it. Similar to what Obama has said when he's been asked about UFOs, that there is something to it. He can't discuss it. At the end of the day, come on. If there's nothing to it, why would they do this? Why, unless you're alleging Project Bluebeam, which I'll make an episode on that one day, I'll get around to it. I don't think Project Bluebeam is the most likely culprit for this entire incident. I just don't. I think it's possible, just not likely. And for them to be saying that, for Trump to be saying that, means there's something to it. There's something to the Roswell incident. There's something to this phenomenon as a whole. Trump did not dive into further detail. And for him to be backed into a corner, it sounds like what Ross is alleging. You guys can give me your thoughts on this. But to me, it sounds like he's alleging Trump may squeal piggy on UFOs. He may be the president or former president to bring disclosure to the American people, perhaps to save his own ass from prison, perhaps to cause such an uproar in society that they will demand his release from prison. I don't know why he would do it or how that would save him from whatever persecution is coming his way, whether rightfully or wrongfully, as you guys probably have an opinion on. Everybody seems to. I try to stay out of it because it's just not where my interest or fascination lies. And I think politics is so corrupt that, I just don't have a dog in the fight anymore. I don't believe in the political system whatsoever. But for Trump to be the one, I think that you could say it makes sense. It makes sense that of all the people in the high ranking in the government and presidents, past, former, current, whatever, he seems like he'd be the one, doesn't he? The one who came from a not political background. I mean, Biden himself has been in politics his entire life. He's a career politician. It's literally his career, his entire life. It's been where he's cashing his paychecks. So the likelihood of somebody like Biden turning on whatever you want to name these people who are keeping this secret, the deep state, the legacy program, whoever it is that's in power of these programs and who has been doing such a damn job. Hats off to these evil, nefarious people for keeping this a secret and running such a profound and complicated disinformation campaign on the American people and the world as a whole for so many decades. I mean, these guys are good at their job. The government is super incompetent, and that's always been the argument as to, how could this be kept secret if it was real? The government sucks at keeping secrets, and the government kind of sucks overall at their job. I would agree with you, although I do agree with people who also say that, well, this is the biggest secret of all time. They would be willing to do anything to keep something this big from the public because it undermines them in so many ways. It undermines their credibility and all the lies they've told over the decades. It undermines their power in the world. We've always gone around thinking, the government has the power to protect the American people and that they're the top dog in the world. What if we found out that because of these UAPs, because of this non-human intelligence, they're not on the top of the food chain and they have no ability to protect the American people? I can't think of really any other bigger topic that would rip the trust from the American people if there's any shred of it remaining. Let's say 10% of the people trust the American government. That's going to go to an immediate zero, and people I don't know if they're going to panic, but, it's hard to run a government if the people distrust absolutely everything you do and say. We're kind of already at that inflection point regardless of the UAP phenomenon, but that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and Trump could be the one. I mean, to Ross's point, I think Trump could be the one, and especially when you find a man backed into a corner where potentially his freedom could be taken away from him. He's obviously going to be running for president. So there's a lot on the line for this man. And obviously, you guys know that this man has secrets. He has information from his years as president that would probably blow our minds. If we heard everything that dude knows, we would not sleep at night. Now, some people don't agree that Trump even has been read into this. We've always heard time and time again that presidents are often blocked from getting access to this. We famously know that Clinton, when he got into office, one of his first acts as president was to go and try to find out what there was in truth to the UFO phenomenon, and famously he was blocked from that. And then we know that his wife Hillary Clinton attempted a disclosure project with Tom DeLonge and what's his name, John Podesta. Back in the WikiLeaks of, I don't know how many years back it was, but there was a managed disclosure attempt because Hillary, I guess 2015, 2016, because Hillary was trying to get in the office, and apparently she was going to try to win over the public by disclosing the UFO phenomenon. Not a fan of Hillary, but would have loved to see disclosure come, but maybe not at the cost of her having to be president for us. That's another topic for another day. But what can we say about this? I think that we can play both sides of the spectrum in this hypothesis. One, I do think Trump would be the most likely. He's a little far out there. His attitude and his he's not able to be compromised in the way that the typical presidents are able to be compromised financially. He came in rich as hell already. So how are you going to compromise a man who already has everything in the world that he could possibly desire? And he's not coming from a political background. He's not a career politician like Biden and so many presidents are that get into office. And the only counterpoint that I could think to that is why on earth would they have briefed this man? Clearly at every step of the way, his own advisory team, his own administration turned against him and conspired against him. General Milley, many people in his organization didn't agree with his political beliefs and attempted to sabotage his career in every way. We know that whether you're left-wing, right-wing, independent, you don't care, like myself, whatever that may be, obviously you have to admit that his presidency was very much so undermined by his own team. So I find it weird to believe that he would have been read in 2020, what is that? I guess COVID. So like right before COVID or during COVID, he was read in on such a profound secret. I'm a little skeptical that they would read Trump into it. Dude's got a big mouth, and I just don't know. On one hand, I think he is the most likely president if we're going to talk about what president would be most likely to disclose something like this. The other hand is why would they have read him in if they didn't read people like Bill Clinton and I don't know how many other presidents they've blocked access from. You'd have to go back to the history pages to learn that one. But I can see both sides of it. But really, what really makes me think about this and why it's been stuck in my mind the past couple of days is Ross's word. Ross didn't say that for no reason. He never does. He never comes to the table and just says some outlandish claim off the cuff with no information on it. He never has done that. You guys got to do the history on him. If you don't believe what I just said right there, you got to go back and check out all his work and seeing what he's alleged and what's come true since he's alleged it. I mean, the dude is very good at his job. There's no doubt about it. And for him to say this rings the alarm bell for me. I do think Trump's the most likely president. I think it would make sense in the story of Trump with all the crazy shit that's gone down with him. It would only make sense in the simulation of a world that Trump would be the one to break non-human intelligence and reverse engineering programs, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe he just says he knows what happened in Roswell and he actually squeals it to the American public because he's about to go to prison and he thinks that he can upheave society with this and make the distrust in the government so profound that the call for him to be released from these charges is so big, and maybe he thinks it could get him back in office. I don't know. You guys can share your thoughts with me on that. I'm very open to I'm open to this conversation. I don't know what to make of it, but boy, am I interested in this, and I'm interested to see what Ross has to say about it. Let's go into a few reactions because anything Donald Trump is going to get hatred and vitriol and giant support also, and it's going to get a lot of mixed reviews, and Twitter is definitely the place where those reviews go. And this is interesting. So Foss Disclosure on Twitter responded to that post, and he says, well, this was from 3 months ago, and he doesn't give the impression he has anything he wants to say, even says he's not really into the UAP thing, and he tags the video of, what is that podcast? I don't listen to it. It's you guys will know it. It's the two guys. They're huge Trumpy guys, and they had Tucker Carlson on a few months back. I actually like the podcast the few times I've listened to it. I think they're the ones who have like the Happy Dad beer company. I just can't remember the name of their podcast, but they did have Trump on a while back, and I do remember watching that clip where he said that he wasn't a quote unquote believer in the phenomenon, and he wasn't really interested in it. But then again, he also said to counter that, he said the Roswell incident, there was something very interesting to that. So on one hand, you can read that and say, okay, well, Trump's already said he's not interested into it. One, that was a different time. He's facing some serious indictments right now, and apparently, if you can trust the fake-ass mainstream news, he might be actually imprisoned for this indictment. This one may go farther than the other ones. I don't even know what the indictment is. I've given up even paying attention to that. You guys can let me know. But it's getting serious for him. There's no debate about that. It's getting serious, and it's he's in some hot water, and So the times are changing is my point, and maybe he wasn't interested in the phenomenon now, or back then, I'm sorry, or maybe he just is like every other president. He knows more than he's letting on, and he just simply can't reveal it to the American public. But now he's in such a dire situation, and as Ross says, his back is against the freaking wall, and maybe he will do anything to get the American public's trust back, or to eradicate what shred of trust remains in the government by revealing one of the government's biggest, not one of, the biggest secret kept in the American government. I find that to be very fascinating. Steve on Twitter, he has a bunch of emojis, so I don't even know how to read that off. So we'll just say Steve, ** on Twitter says he can reveal whatever he likes, but with no evidence and proof, it's a waste of time. I don't know about that. Coming from somebody as powerful and in a career such as Trump, who literally was former president, that's a big deal. And that would hit home if he came out and said something like that. I don't even think he'd have to provide us with pictures or evidence. He could simply say, I've been read in on this, and there's more to it than you guys know. Roswell was real. He could literally just say that. The Roswell incident was real. The cover-up was fake. The weather balloon, all that was fake, and I've seen the proof. He doesn't need to reveal the proof, nor could he. We've already seen David Grush running into that problem. He can talk about some things, but he's got to be very careful about what he mentions, and he can't reveal classified material. I don't think Trump is going to reveal anything classified and then potentially imprison himself even longer or get another indictment by revealing that. But so I think, to his point, Steve's point, I don't think he's going to bring proof, but I disagree with him thinking that it's a waste of time. I think his supporters, which are millions in strength, would definitely believe that. I think I would believe it if he came out and said it, depending on what he said. And I disagree with that point. I think that it would hit home coming from somebody as powerful as Trump. And even if Biden, for whatever we think of Biden, if he did come out and actually say this, I think a lot of us would believe it. Because these are people in the most powerful man in the world at one point, and for him to be saying something that big of a deal, it's going to hit home, proof or no proof. Now, I do want to touch very briefly on the Alaska shootdown, because that's another thing that I read here at the beginning that Ross revealed. I keep saying I'm going to do this. I need to do an episode on the Alaska shootdowns that happened earlier in the year after the Chinese balloon shootdown, because so much of that never got revealed to the public. So much of it was extremely sketchy. If you guys remember, one of the sketchiest points is when I was listening live to a stream of, I think it was the New York Times, a reporter from New York Times asked the commander of NORAD after the 3 shootdowns was in Canada, Alaska, wherever else it was, asked the commander of NORAD, can we rule out extraterrestrial activity? Because, the American people are scared. You guys haven't revealed much about this. Can we at least rule out aliens? And he said no. He said, I cannot rule that out. I will not rule out anything until we get more information. Why on earth would you say that to the American people? It got swept under the rug and forgotten about. We never got the shoot-down videos. If you guys remember when Russia had that near collision with the American jets and they sprayed jet fuel all over the place on the American drone, I think it was, we got a video within like 24 to 48 hours of that. Interesting, because we got that video, which pushed their agenda to further the Russia-Ukraine war. It's not the Russia-American war yet. We'll see about that. That's still developing. But we got that video within like 24 to 48 hours. Interesting. We never got answers. We never got anything about these shootdowns. We never got the video footage. Why? Why did we not get the footage? It makes no sense. They also claimed, these were balloons. They weren't balloons. Specifically said we're calling them objects, not balloons, because they're not balloons. We heard so many contradicting points from the entire administration, from NORAD, from everybody, and then it just, what do you know? People stopped asking the hard questions. Reporters gave up, and that was the end of that. We never got video footage. Why didn't we get footage? Of course, they're going to say sources and methods. We don't want to reveal the weaponry that we have. We don't want to reveal the capability of our aircraft, whatever the stupid reason is. But then they go and release the Russia drone video 24 hours later. So why would that not compromise us? But then telling us about this shoot down of supposed possible balloons would be devastating to American national security. It's a garbage statement. So I need to do an entire breakdown video on the Alaska shoot downs, because I'm so pissed we still haven't gotten answers. It pisses me off. It makes no sense. I wish there was a bigger demand for answers. I don't know if even we had a big demand that they would reveal anything. This government keeps everything a secret, and it's why I distrust them so much, probably why you distrust them as well. So wrapping up, man, is Trump going to be the one to reveal, UFOs, non-human intelligence, alien bodies. Is he going to confirm Roswell was real? I am so fascinated to find out. It seems that the hotter his cases get, the more indictments that come, the more hot water he is in. His only way out is probably to become president, right? Because if they don't hit him with this indictment, they will eventually land on the target. And I'm not here to say that that's legitimate or right. I'm just here to say clearly these guys have an agenda. Clearly they do not want this man to run, and they will either find charges or they will make the charges. It's that simple. So we're now on indictment number 4 or 5. This one doesn't go through, then another one will. Supposedly he's going to be jailed in the next week or so, get the mugshot and all that. And he's in hot water and he is backed into a corner. I agree with what Ross has to say, and I'm so curious what Ross is talking about here. What do you guys think? I want your thoughts. And then lastly, Ross said that he knows more about specifically the type of NHI that we've been interacting with, and he has a good reason. He hasn't said specifics. He wants to protect his sources. He wants to protect his methods. We get that, but we need freaking answers. Ross has said a lot of crazy things recently, but I believe him 100% because he has such a credentialed history. He's the one that you guys might have seen the Twitter clips going viral recently of saying that there was a craft so big, a UFO craft so big that they built a building around it in a foreign country in some desolate part of the world, and that they can't move it because people were speculating when this new legislation just passed that Chuck Schumer proposed about all the non-human intelligence evidence and craft materials, non-Earth materials, everything like that has to be disclosed to the American government, and that all these defense contractors and private aerospace companies have to come clean with what they've got. That legislation literally just passed, I think a week or two ago, and people were instantly speculating, okay, they're just going to move the craft, dude. You just basically told them all, hey, we're coming for your craft in 60 days. They're going to move them. And that was my first thought, okay, big deal. They're going to move them. They're going to hide them. They've been doing this for decades. You think you caught them by saying that you're going to come for them in a couple months? No. Ross's counterpoint to that was, by the way, they have some craft that are so big they can't move them. Fascinating, man. Fascinating times, dude. Ross is a credible guy, and I urge you guys to go check out his podcast, Need to Know, and let me know your thoughts about this. Is Trump going to be the one to break this closure to the American people? Time will tell. I think if there was any president to do it, seems like this will be the one, guys. Let me know your thoughts. What a fascinating freaking time to be alive. I think we're getting disclosure soon in some form. Is it going to be full? Is it going to be transparent? No. Is it going to be weaponized? 100%. Who's going to be the first one to break it? We need somebody in a high place of authority, be that Trump, be that David Grush actually being able to come out with the classified information, which I don't see that happening. As we know, he doesn't want to imprison himself by revealing that. But through him, through the 40 whistleblowers from the Legacy program, somebody is going to tell the American public the truth, at least a fraction of the truth at some point. That is my personal belief. Not everybody agrees. A lot of people are saying PSYOP, distraction. Even Joe Rogan is kind of off team UFO and says this is a distraction now that they're talking about it. It's just advanced drones. I find that to be a ridiculous theory, a possible theory, but the least likely one, following right behind Project Bluebeam. So that's all we got today, guys. Do me a favor, if you enjoy this type of content, I'm having a blast doing this channel, and I love growing it. On the podcast app, we are streaming in 10 different countries right now, so I'm having a blast, and I would really appreciate you guys if you do something free for me. Just subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps me out a lot. I'm really doing this to the best of my ability. I'm keeping up with the news. I'm really diving into these subjects to my best ability. I'm doing a daily episode. So if you guys like this type of content, UFOs, UFC content, World War III, geopolitical news, there's fascinating times in all 3 of these subjects. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast, whether you're on Spotify Podcast, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, leave a 5-star review. And lastly, I have a Discord group called Mixed Martial Arts. The link is in the description of this video, and we basically are just building a little community for people who are interested in one of, 2 of, or all 3 of these subjects. We share news, bring up topics, just talk about these in a long format where you can talk back and forth with people all across the world, sharing your ideas. So if you guys would like to be a part of that, we're going to be doing fun group activities as it grows, watching fights together, streaming live events, having guests on who are more the expert level. I'm not an expert. I'm just a dude who likes talking about it. I would love to have experts on in all these fields to maybe educate us or give us different perspective on these nuanced subjects. So I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow morning. Hope you guys have a good day. Is Trump revealing UFOs? Is he revealing non-human intelligence? Time will tell. Peace out, y'all.